All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. The June meeting, we meet the first Tuesday of every month at 7 o'clock. It is virtual. And I am definitely looking for a local spot in Baltimore to host the meetings where we could be in person. And then if I can get somebody who's technology savvy, we can record and broadcast it virtual for those that can't make it. But I love to do this in person. So, but for now, it's just strictly virtual. I have a different topic every month, the first Tuesday of every month. And the Meetup group has about 350 people in the group right now. Everyone's welcome, from beginners to experienced to middle of the road. I take all questions. It doesn't matter where you are. I believe in meeting people where they are. So don't be shy. If you got a question, please ask me your question. I am your host, Coach Mike, founder and owner of Walk Farm Consultants. My two main goals are to teach people how to get off the sidelines and get in the game of investing. And then two, people who already invest in, to provide a source for them to bounce ideas off of. Hey, Coach Mike, what do you think about this stock? Should I add this to my position? Should I sell this? Should I buy that? So those are my two main goals for Walk On Consultants. I always started off the same way, saying that investment in knowledge pays the best interest. Benjamin Franklin is known as an inventor, but he's also got some wisdom there with his advice. So thank you, Benjamin Franklin. And as announced, tonight we're going to talk about Nike versus Under Armour. Not just the sneakers, actually not the sneakers at all, right? Really talking about the investment in those companies. Which one looks like a better buy? Is it Nike or is it Under Armour? So the first thing I always look at when I review companies to decide if I'm going to make an investment, I'm going to look at their revenues. Like, how much money are they actually earning? It's two things. Just like us as consumers, you may have an income from your job, but how much do you have left over? So you see revenue and you see earnings. And earnings is what's left over after you paid your employees, after you've paid shipping and manufacturing. Earnings is what's left over. So on the left, we've got Nike. And you can see year by year, 2019 up to 2022, from just under 40 billion to over 45, I think like around 46, 47 billion in annual sales. Under Armour, a much smaller company, they didn't have 2019 available, so we started with 2020, but they're at 4.5 billion, and last year a little bit over 5.5 billion. So a much smaller company. But remember, Nike started like in the 60s or the 70s. They had a really long head start. Under Armour, a local company, based out of Baltimore, founded by the guy Kevin Plank, who worked at the University of Maryland, didn't get started until, I don't know, like the 90s or the 2000s. So newer company, long way to go, but you can see there's not even close. And their earnings, they lost money in 2020. I tend to give companies a pass if they lost money in 2020. That was the first year of the pandemic. A lot of companies didn't do well in 2020, so I'm not going to hold that against them. But as I look at the 21 and 22, it still doesn't look that good. So based on this, I would go with Nike. But as I was doing my research, the surprising thing jumped out at me is that Nike, there's Nike and then there's everybody else. The other companies are not even close. Like, you can add them all up and look at their sales. Like, Nike's just so far ahead of the game. Adidas, which is the next closest, right, with 23 billion in sales, probably won't have that this year because you guys know what, right? They had an agreement with Kanye or Yeezy, right? And they dropped him and they split. So they probably won't even have 23 billion next year, right? I mean, that's the closest competitor, but they won't even have that next year, my prediction. Next up on the list is Puma, which is one of my favorites. I do love Pumas. I've been rocking Pumas since the Run DMC days, right? And same with Adidas, right? But Skechers, I think, in my opinion, probably will be the next biggest competitor because they have sneakers and shoes, and they've got Howie Long. They got some really good commercials, and they don't really have any superstar athletes that are promoting them. But I think Skechers got the most potential. And then you look at Under Armour being number 5. So it's kind of weird. I started out with Nike versus Under Armour, and then I looked like, wow, Under Armour's not even number 2. They're like number 5. And who knows if they're going to even hold number 5. Followed by New Balance, Asics. So what I also put there is the ticker symbols if you're looking to buy in one of those companies. Now, keep in mind, Adidas is a German company, and so is Puma. Skechers is an American company. New Balance is privately held. Asics is a Japanese company. Vans, which is used by the skateboarders, right? They're owned by VF Corp, which owns a lot of different brands. Converse is owned by Nike. And their sales just from Converse is almost where Under Armour is. They can catch Under Armour if you ask me. And then at the bottom you got Reebok, which is privately held. So just a wrap up of the top 10 sneaker companies. But look at what I put in parentheses. Nike sells in a month what some companies sell in a year, close to it anyway. Okay. So far since the year started, it's a year-to-date chart. You see at the bottom, year-to-date. This is since the year started in January up until now. Nike is down 9.5%, and Under Armour is down 22, almost 23% since the year started. Okay. How's that compared to what the market? Now the market is up 11.3%. So both of them are underperforming the market. The market is outperforming both stocks. Okay. And I hope you guys can see the chart clearly. And by the way, if you got a question right now, jump in, unmute yourself, ask me. I don't want to lose anybody with all these charts and graphs and numbers. So I don't mind being interrupted, even though it's a recording. If you got a question, feel free. I'm not that kind of coach. Just jump on in and ask me a question. But both of them have underperformed the year so far. But I always preach long-term investing. Like Andre was mentioning, he's buying oil. He's long-term investing. He's not looking to get rich quick. So this is since the year started, just covers 6 months. Let's look at 5 years. In the last 5 years, okay, Nike's up 41%, Under Armour down 69%. That's crazy. So Nike's up 41%. Just imagine in 5 years, that's 8% per year. 8 times 5 is 40. So a little more than 8% per year return on your investment in Nike over the last 5 years. Under Armour, you're down 69%. So it's like a no-brainer if you ask me. Again, if you compare them to the stock market is up 53%. So, what's 10 times 550? The market's up 10, 11% per year over the last 5 years. Nike underperformed, but did still a whole hell of a lot better than Under Armour. Now, you will hear this phrase a lot, right? Past performance is no guarantee of future performance, okay? But we got to base it on something, right? We all know people have a history, whether it's a personal history or a job history or a restaurant's history. What else you going to base your future prediction on other than what it's done in the past? So if I look at the past and I had to make a prediction about the future, I'm not feeling so good about Under Armour. Although you could say, they're overdue for a turnaround, I wouldn't bet on it. So just the facts. So I'm about to wrap it up here. This one is really, really quick because I really want to have the discussion. What's going to affect these two companies and the market going forward? Inflation is coming down. Eggs were like $12 a dozen, and I believe it's coming down now. The Fed is done raising rates, probably almost done. They're going to probably take a pause in June. They may resume in July, but I think they're, if not done, just about done, maybe 1 or 2 more hikes, and they'll probably be done raising rates. So will we have a recession coming up? And if we do, and companies lay people off, right? If companies lay people off, consumers will cut back on this discretionary spending. And that will affect companies like Nike and Under Armour and restaurants and everything else. So the economy will slow down. Our economy is based on consumer spending. 2/3 of our GDP is based on consumer spending. So if companies lay people off and consumers cut back, both companies will be affected. So what I always recommend is have a diverse portfolio in one of the 11 sectors. You don't have to have something in all 11 sectors, but you need to be diversified and not have all of your money in consumer discretionary. Probably have some in consumer staples, have some in energy, as Andre mentioned, have some in IT, the biggest sector, right? You got to have some technology stocks. So healthcare is something that usually doesn't get affected by the economy because you can't determine when you're going to get sick. And if you get sick, you're not going to put it off because you lost your job. You're going to get healthcare. So think about those sectors when you decide where your money's going to go. And lastly, wrapping it up, right? Always keep track of your portfolio and the 3 things: the economy, your stock, and your industry, whatever stock that may be, okay? Use technology to set alerts, listen to the quarterly reports, adjust your portfolio, book an appointment with me if you can't figure it out. And I always like to say that learning is a journey. It is not a destination. You will always keep learning. You're never going to get there. I've been investing since the 90s and I still learn new stuff all the time. So with that in mind, I'm going to open the floor to questions. Here's my contact info. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop recording, and let's have a great discussion on the stock market.